So I played the Persona series for the first time about 2 years ago during quarantine, and even with Persona 4 being the first one that I played and my favorite game of all time, I think the one that definitely stood out to me the most was Persona 3. I was 16, with nothing to do besides school and video games, so with already being inside all day, the Persona games were just really cozy. I'd spend all day talking and playing games with my friends on Discord, and then I'd usually just binge Persona 3 or 4 during the night. The amazing stories that the games had, social links, and the crazy-ass plot twists the games would throw at you were just hitting the perfect spots for me. And Persona 3 is just such a special game to me because of just how different it felt from Personas 4 or 5 or really any other game that I've played. From the music, to the characters, to the setting, it's just really iconic. Iwatodai feels special in the sense that it's just such a unique setting. And it has a smooth appeal in the sense that everything is just so well connected. There's about 6 locations that you can travel to and all of them are detailed to the brim. The accessory shop is super bright and shiny, and the Wild Duck Burger shop has a lot going for it, even though you really come here like 3 times. There's even a mascot in the back that gives it some added personality. In the Naganaki Shrine, you can see Talisman in the back filled with people's prayers. And Iwatodai Station, along with Polonia Mall, seems to be a central hub where you can do different things and people just hang out. The backgrounds of each area gives it a distinct feeling from the last, and the aesthetics are genuinely amazing. Even the shady alleyway from the first cutscene, you can still visit on your free time. It all has a sense of a huge open city, but in reality it's a lot smaller than you would think. Shibuya from Persona 5 also has some of these features as well, except that it's not being held back by hardware limitations. And so they had the chance of making a huge and realistic depiction of Shibuya. And that was made even bigger in Persona 5 Royal with Kichijoji and things like pools, darts, and jazz clubs. But with everything that we get from Persona 3, especially at the time it came out, it's definitely one of my favorites. Not my favorite in the series, but still amazing and memorable. And I haven't even really mentioned the slick UI that the game had for its time. That being said, I also think Persona 3 is one of the darkest games that I've ever played. With the main idea being a secret 25th hour in the day that only some people can access, and that's called the Dark Hour.
Didn't it feel like you were in a different time? That's the Dark Hour, a time period hidden between one day and the next.
Along with the Dark Hour are enemies known as shadows. And on every full moon is a super shadow that I like to call a full moon shadow. And after they take out 12 of the full moon shadows, then the Dark Hour and shadows will just disappear entirely. The group itself is called Seas, and that's basically their main mission. Every time it hits the Dark Hour, the music completely stops and all you see is a clock slowly ticking away until it hits 12 and then breaking apart, with the sound that plays with it sounding very ominous and unnatural. The Dark Hour is easily one of my favorite plot points of the story, as the view of it is just so sinister. The streets that were once filled with people going about their day is now just a ghost town left with bloodstains and coffins. For some unlucky people, they happen to accidentally be fully awake during the Dark Hour, and unfortunate for them, this can happen. Though that's really just the surface. The real deal is when you have to traverse through the Dark Hour dungeon called the Tartarus. It only appears in the Dark Hour, and it's basically the nest of where the shadows come from. It also has 264 floors. Besides the blood-soaked hallways, the first block of Tartarus actually may seem pretty normal. But as you progress and go up higher, the environment changes and it looks more and more weird. It does a great job at portraying a disturbing and threatening place. Not to mention the music that plays is also very eerie, though with every advancement of the dungeon lays a new instrument to the music, so it becomes less creepy and more so comforting. Almost like you're advancing with the characters and becoming more used to this strange and unsafe environment. And on block 6 being the final block, the transformation is noticeable. It goes from this creepy and almost scary noise in block 1 to sounding angelic and powerful to block 6. For the outside portions during the dark hour, you see the desolated streets of Iwatodai and the dark skies with an intimidating full moon looming over the city. And Persona 3 is just naturally really good at using its setting to invoke emotions throughout. In the first full moon mission, the group has to stop a train during the dark hour, and the backdrop is one of the strongest in the game. It also helps that this is the only time you see this background in the game. Makoto also being one of the coolest protags in Persona and a fan favorite. He's a guy who straight up doesn't care or will tell you off if you bother him, which is a character that perfectly fits in a game like this. Even the Persona summoning is pretty edgy and grim, as it's the character pointing a gun to their head and shooting themselves only for their actual personas to come to life. The later games of course had Persona summoning, but it was never as grave as this. With the meaning behind the summoning being to fight, you must be ready to die at any given moment. The opening also enforces this by overloading you with French text that tells you to not be afraid or to remember that you are mortal. And probably the most famous line being Memento Mori, meaning that you must die. One of the main characters, Yukari Takeba, struggles with this fact at the beginning of the game, and when a life or death situation actually came up, she still couldn't pull the trigger. So of course we have the Chad himself literally take the gun and pull it with no hesitation.
Persona.
With how Makoto acts in this game, I'm pretty sure it's no surprise to see him at the top of tier makers or popularity polls. Makoto's persona is Orpheus. In the Persona series, the protagonist personas are usually themed after varied ancient mythology. Orpheus in ancient Greek mythology was the son of Apollo. His father taught him how to play an instrument known as the lyre, and he became quite fond of it. So fond that he became much better than Apollo at using the instrument. In Persona 3, Makoto sits on a chair in the Velvet Room with the same design as a lyre, further pushing the connection to Orpheus. But going back to Orpheus, he then later on fell in love with a lady named Eurydice, and Eurydice fell in love with him after hearing him play his lyre. After some time together, a man named Aristeus saw Eurydice's beauty and wanted it for his own. And so he hid in the bushes and planned to kill Orpheus. And as they approached near, Aristeus jumped out of the bushes but wasn't able to kill Orpheus. And while Eurydice ran away from the situation, she was fatally bitten by a snake and passed away. After her death, Orpheus was broken and overcome with grief. He lost all enjoyment in doing anything, including playing his own lyre. Since he lost the motivation to do or enjoy anything, you could say that he came down with a case of apathy. Makoto in Persona 3 is literally someone who just doesn't give a shit. He initially walked through the dark hour with no emotion or social awareness. We don't know how different Makoto was when his parents were alive, but from what we can see now, this is a man who doesn't care about life in any sense of the word. And Orpheus perfectly represents him in that regard. As for the characters of Persona 3, the way they act also vastly conflicts how the newer Persona games portray their characters. In Personas 4 and 5, the cast of characters were very well crafted to feel like a real friend group. The personalities bounced off each other very well, and outside of the dungeon crawling, whenever they're hanging out, they're always making jokes and having a good time, like friends should. In the beginning, Persona 3's characters feels more like coworkers than actual friends. Inside of the dorm, you can find the characters just off doing their own thing. They don't really socialize with each other, and you'll almost never find them outside together. They only come together to fight shadows and to end the dark hour. Every party member that you meet has some kind of hidden trauma that they're suffering from behind the scenes. Each character is either suffering over the loss of someone that they love or the loss of themselves, which embodies the themes of Persona 3. Loss, death, and overcoming fear. Other than a few events, there really isn't much scenes of the characters just enjoying themselves or having a good time. And I know it's kinda random, but it's also why I kinda like Persona 3 Dancing in Moonlight so much. While I know it isn't very well received by the fans, I really enjoyed it a lot as the events were just the characters having fun and forgetting about any source of danger. And it's not even that I like games with a lighter tone, it's just with how much the characters suffer in Persona 3, it's really nice to see them relax and just have fun. But naturally, because of the trauma and the things that they've been through, it just makes them really hard to open up to each other, making it oddly one of the most realistic cast of characters. As the game goes on, this does get a lot better as they start to feel more like friends, but there is still a part of them that's just a bit shy to open up. And I think two characters that definitely embody this the most are Ken and Shinjiro. Now, as in making this video, I've tried my best to make this as spoiler-free as possible with only talking a little bit about heavy plot points. So if you haven't played Persona 3, then be warned, it's gonna get pretty spoiler-heavy from here. Ken Hamada is a 13-year-old boy that we meet in the later half of the game, and we eventually find out that he has the power to wield a persona. The thing about him is his mom died 2 years ago, and his dad isn't in the picture. So he stays with the group and lives with them in order to fight the shadows. Shinjiro Aragaki is another party member of C's who comes in a little late. He's also a childhood friend of another C's member, Akihiko. Shinjiro also wields the power of persona, but he's also a retired member of the group. On his first mission a couple years back, his persona went out of control and accidentally killed someone completely uninvolved with the fight. Since then, he started taking pills to control his persona from going loose and accidentally killing someone else. He also cut ties with everyone and stopped using his persona entirely. And after hearing that a little boy named Ken has joined the group, Shinjiro then felt some incentive to join back. Now, the problem with the Shinjiro situation is the person Shinjiro killed wasn't a random bystander, it was actually Ken's mom. Ken is seemingly unaware of this, and on October 4th, the group goes to fight a full moon boss, and Shinjiro and Ken are nowhere to be found. And with really no time to find them, then everyone just head out to fight the shadow. And after successfully beating the shadow, Akihiko then comes to a realization that the date is October 4th, the same day that Ken's mom initially died. Ken, fixated with anger, has been searching for his mom's killer for the past 2 years. Shinjiro realizes that Ken wants revenge on him, and he understands his anger. Shinjiro tells Ken to kill him, as he is also still very regretful for what happened that night, but also warns him that killing him will just make him live his life in regret. And before Ken can even make a move, Takaya, one of the antagonists in a group called Strega, comes in. He tells Ken that Shinjiro was going to die soon anyway, as the pills he was taking was suppressing his persona, but also killing him in the process. And while emotions are still high, Takaya takes advantage of the situation and chooses to kill both of them. Shinjiro, running in to save Ken, is shot in the chest, and as Takaya tries to shoot Ken next, Shinjiro jumps in front of him and takes another bullet for him. The group then finally arrives and Takaya retreats. Shinjiro is too wounded to be helped and tells Ken to use his anger as his strength before passing away.
Give yourself time. Let your anger be your strength. Come on, kid, you're just a kid. You've got your whole life ahead of you, so don't waste it. Make it your own, okay?
This has to be one of the lowest points the characters have ever been through. Akihiko and Ken having this the absolute worst out of everyone else. And probably you as the player as well. I remember genuinely having to take a break because of just how much stuff happened all at once. It's also one of the first times a major party member has died in the story. And it's even sadder when you realize Shinjiro was one of the best physical users in the game. I feel horrible for the people who actually leveled him up and made him a permanent member of their team. At Shinjiro's wake, Akihiko is there to talk to him after hours, and he puts Shinjiro's death on himself.
But I was so focused on fighting that I didn't notice anything else. It didn't matter how tough I was. Look what happened!
But the ending parts of the game are also something I hold in very high regard, as the themes of death and overcoming loss are more present here than they ever have been. So fast forward a couple months after Shinjiro's death, and the team has defeated every full moon shadow. And like they were told, the 12 full moon shadows are gone, and the Dark Hour and Tartarus will disappear completely, and their mission will basically be over.
The 12 shadows that were the cause of all our troubles have been destroyed thanks to your efforts. You needn't bear this burden any longer. You deserve a chance to experience the joys of youth.
Well, you soon learn that you've been lied to, as killing the 12 moon shadows would reunite as one and summon the goddess of death, Nyx. The man who has been helping them and giving them information, Ikutsuki, reveals that he was a part of the original group of scientists who experimented on shadows and created the Dark Hour. By bringing along the goddess of death, Nyx, the plan was to destroy and rebuild the world and have someone else rule over as king. And they called this the Fall. If this doesn't sound like some SMT plot, then I don't know what does. Ikutsuki, feeling satisfied for bringing the Fall, realizes that his mission is now complete and commits suicide. There is a lot that I did glance over with this, but the stuff that I glanced over just isn't too important to this segment. Anyway, the team then finds out that they have until the end of January, as on the 31st, Nyx will descend and bring forth the Fall, essentially wiping out the human race. The entire month of January is, in my opinion, the best part of this game. Takaya, and his friend Jin start a cult informing people that death is near and that the destruction of the world is imminent. From this point on, the atmosphere of Iwatorai is completely unmatched. The lively streets of Iwatorai that I praised so much is now just completely empty and filled with propaganda from Strega. The people in your school start to gossip about the Strega cult, and the civilians of Iwatorai also seem to slowly get more and more deranged to the point where they start to worship the idea of death. The characters start off devastated, but slowly start to open up to the idea of fighting Nyx, even though they know that they'll die in the process. And the music that plays in the overworld does a complete 180 to what I believe is some of the best music in any game that I've ever played. Memories of the City and Memories of the School perfectly encapsulates the current situation of the world. They invoke a feeling of sadness, dread, hope, and tiny hints of happiness. It kinda gives me a nostalgic feel for all of the things that the characters have done up to this point, and it really makes me feel like the journey is coming to an end. With both of these songs having hints of the credit song Memories of You, making these two songs essentially prepare you for the ending song, which I'm gonna warn you is definitely gonna hit you like a truck. Probably the closest game to give me a similar atmosphere to this was Persona 4, in the month of October when everything was foggy and the people were losing their minds. And just all of Nier Automata, I guess. Before January 31st, the group makes a promise. They promise each other that no matter what, they'll see each other to graduation on March 5th. So fast forward to the 31st and you have the final showdown with the goddess of death, Nyx. This final boss is no joke and it's one of the hardest final bosses in the series, which is pretty fitting for this encounter. Just make sure you keep everyone healed up and your healers in check as... Yeah, this is a really long fight. There's a lot of room for error and Nyx has 14 phases. And try to not let your healers get charmed. Anyways, after finally defeating Nyx, Makoto ascends to Nyx's true form and fights him head on. And at this point, the growth of Makoto from the beginning of the game to now is significant. Makoto has went from someone who didn't really care about what happened to himself or the entire world, to someone who's willing to risk it all for his friends and the people who he cares for. And with the power of his friends, he uses a move called the Great Seal, ending the battle entirely. With all of his friends happy to see him finishing the fight. The Dark Hour disappears and so does Tartarus, finally putting an end to the conflicts. The game then fast forwards to March 3rd, and oddly everyone seems to forget about what happened during the last year. Junpei and Yukari even forgetting about how they became friends. Probably not important at all, I don't know. Since this is basically the end of the game, you can check up on all your friends that you've made along the way at school, which is pretty cool. You can see what they've been up to and what they plan on doing in the future. The only thing is, everyone asks if you've been getting enough sleep and that you look really pale, with some even saying you look a bit unhealthy. On the final day of the game, March 5th, also graduation day, you and Aigis are on the rooftop and she starts to talk to you about the hardships that you guys have faced over the past year, and how it's helped her find her meaning in life. Aigis was kinda like you in a sense of being very apathetic. She's a robot whose sole purpose was to fight shadows and to end the Dark Hour. So naturally she didn't really care for much else. But like Makoto, she also made a lot of growth during the story and she became very caring for the other characters. And the message that she tells you to end off the game is just simply beautiful.
I realize now that I have friends as well. You don't have to save the world to find meaning in life. Sometimes, all you need is something simple, like someone to take care of. I'll keep on living no matter what, so that I can protect you. Thank you for everything. You must be tired. Please, get some rest. I'll stay right here with you. Soon, all your friends will be here by your side. Don't worry. I will always be by your side, protecting you.
The ending of this game is one of my favorites of all time. It perfectly encapsulates the messages of death, loss, and overcoming fear. Aigis found her will to live through the hardships that they faced. And even though the mission is over, she still keeps going in order to protect her friends. And Makoto found his will to live through his experiences with his friends and everyone else that he's met. He went from an apathetic asshole in the beginning of the game to someone who was willing to sacrifice himself for everyone else. Since the battle with Nyx, Makoto has been physically dead. It's why everyone you talk to was making note on you looking tired or pale. He held on for so long because of the promise that he made with his friends before the fight. He lived to see them graduate before he would inevitably pass away. He smiles at the end knowing that his time has come, but also that he was able to make a change in the world. And right in Aigis' arms, he passes away. And once again, the game actually hints at this multiple times that you will die. And that's Persona 3. I love the game to death, and the messages and themes the game explores is some of the most profound and interesting ideas that I've ever seen. It really resonated with me and helped me appreciate the people in my life. This is definitely something that will stick with me for years to come, and with such a powerful ending, it'll always remind me to cherish the ones that I love and to live life to the fullest. And it seems I'm not alone in thinking that this game is amazing, as it's getting an HD port on modern systems and PC. And I can't wait to finally... So it seems Persona 3 Portable is getting an HD port, but not the Fez version. Interesting. Oh, it seems there's nothing to worry about. This game looks amazing.
So real, will this never me again?